Hi folks, Dave with DBSTechTalk, and today we're going to talk about the Shuoer Tape. Now I want to thank Farsil the Wizard for sending these over for I want to thank Farsil the Wizard for sending over the Shuoer Tape for review. Do greatly appreciate it. Have had them for a while, and it's been an interesting journey, but I do greatly appreciate it. Check out the links down below for Farsil the Wizard's channel. The Shuoer Tape. We're going to jump right in and talk about sound first, but I need to give a couple of caveats. Number one, if you are a lover of the Shuoer Tape, press the sensitivity sensor button and turn it to maximum, because more than likely you may or may not appreciate some of the comments that are made regarding the Shuoer Tape. Next, the review unit was sent over with stock tips and a bunch of other tips, and none of those worked for me, so I have used some spin fit tips. As you can see here, they are double flange. I will link those down below also, and so all sound descriptions are based off of using these spin fit tips. Okay, since we're on the topic of tips, I will mention the reasons why I'm using the spin fit versus the stocks or anything else. So the stock tips did not fit in my ears whatsoever. I tried them, they were uncomfortable, they hurt when I put them in, they fell off the stems and nozzle of the Shuoer Tape, and I just had all kinds of issues, did not care for them whatsoever. The foam tips and some of the other tips that Farsil included in the unboxing kind of worked, but again, I either had problems with them falling off the nozzle, or they just weren't comfortable in my ear, or they messed around with the sound too much. Most of that was because of foam tips, made them too thick and too just muddy, and there's way too much bass and quelled the treble too much for my preference. And even though that's kind of a good thing in certain ways, which we will discuss here in a moment when we discuss sound, it was too much of a drastic change and I didn't care for it. So all sound impressions are done with these spin fit tips. Alright, that should give you enough time to have hit your sensitivity sensor button and maxed it out and sound impression. So the Shuoer Tape is a V-shaped electrostatic hybrid, and it is a very unique and interesting approach to sound. Does some things very well and does some things not so well. Unfortunately, I find that what it doesn't do well is too much for what it does well to overcome. Let's start with what it doesn't do well. What it doesn't do well is mids. Mids are very recessed and extremely thin. And even though they have good tonality and sound fairly natural, they're just too far back in the mix and they are too thin sounding, and so you just don't get a body to them. They just kind of sound like they're there and they sound lifeless. You just don't get anything out of them. Also, you have to keep them at medium to low volume. If you crank the volume up on these, the mids become very shouty, very grainy sounding and metallic, and all of a sudden you lose what they actually do well, which is the tonality of them, and it just destroys the mids. The other thing that they really do bad is where it goes from upper mid to lower treble. So from about 1K to about 8K, they're forward and they're shouty and they're aggressive. And I don't mind being forward in that area, but I don't like them being shouty and aggressive. And the way that they are presented, they just come out too much and are just overpowering of the mix. Now everything outside of about 8K where it extends out, they have nice air, nice details, nice clarity, and for the most part, decent resolution for the price tag of the Shuoer. But that 1K to 8K region is just too much of a mess. And if you raise the volume any because you want to get a little bit more out of the mids, or you want to feel the bass impact a little bit, that shoutiness, sharpness, and sibilance just comes through, and they become very fatiguing in a very quick way. Also, the other thing that they do not so well, which is also a problem, is that on busier tracks, the bass will become muddy and a little thick, and you get a little too much body and not enough detail. And then another thing that they do that's not the greatest, and I mean, it's not a killer, but it's not a high point, is their soundstage and imaging. Their soundstage is pretty much just a straight line across. It's nice and wide, but everything's just in front of you. You really don't have any height or depth. The spacing is okay, and the imaging is okay. You do get things moving across and traveling, but it's always in a straight line directly in front of you. You don't really get anything curving and going around or up, top or bottom. It's all right on one plane. And so there's imaging and placement, but there's not like precise. It's not like over here. It's more like it's not pinpoint. It's kind of like I'm in this general spot. So it does it better than a lot of IEMs in this price point, but it's not the best that I've heard, and it can be a little distracting, especially since everything is on the same even plane. Now, for what they do good. As I said, these are V shape, and the treble is actually extended out quite well, and you get a really nice sense of air and detail and clarity up top. Now, these aren't the best resolution kings of IEMs, but they have a decent amount of clarity in them. They will shine very well. You get a nice presence about it, and you get details in that a lot of times you won't hear in a cheaper IEM or an IEM that is rolled off. The somewhat problem in that, as I said, is if you raise the volume, it comes over too much and they will be fatiguing. The other thing that they do extremely well is bass. Now, bass can get a little bit jumbled and mumbled on a super busy track or in higher volume. But if you get that proper volume setting and the right songs, the bass is just, it's one of the best basses I've heard in the price tag for the Shuoer Tape. And it has nice sub bass to it and getting really nice impact, and you can get a nice thump and you can really feel it. And you can just have those moments of, yeah, that's what I like. Mid bass and upper bass is very good. You get a nice prominent feel to it. Body's right there, and the bass is amazing on these. Got decent clarity, decent details. I wouldn't say that they're the best in the bunch at this price point, but they're adequately done. If you like V shape, you would probably like the bass on these. As I said, the only real problem with the bass is every now and then you'll get a song that's super heavy, thick, busy type of thing, and they'll kind of jumble up the sounds just a little bit, but that's very few and far between. For the most part, the best aspect of the Shuoer Tape is the bass. Now, they're fairly easy to drive. They're 18 ohms and 104 dB of sensitivity, so you can drive them off of a phone, off of a little DAC amp dongles. You can even use them at your desktop. I tried them on everything that I have, and I found that no matter what I was using them with, I had to have the volume at 50% or less. Didn't matter if it was a DAC amp dongle like the X Duo Link or the ADV Access Port Lite or the Razer DAC amp, or if I had them on my THX AAA 788, or if I had them on the IFI Audio Pro ICANN, it didn't matter. Volume had to be extremely low. If you crank the volume up, they become shouty and the bass becomes a mess. And so therein lies another problem. And that is, on some songs, you were missing details, you were missing the fullness feel, just the enjoyment factor at lower volume. Even though I listen at lower volumes most of the time, I do raise my volume up just a little bit on some songs. And when those songs would come in, you had to raise the volume up a little bit, instantaneously shredding of the ears. And so these are a tough fit. How's the rest of the unboxing experience with them? It's fine, it's mediocre. I mean, you get a little piano box, slide off the top, and your IEMs are gonna fit right here. And then you get some stock tips. And then Farsil also sent along some tips for me to try. I understand why you sent all those tips to try, but they just didn't work for me. And as far as the IEM themselves, they're actually not badly built. With the cable that Farsil included, I don't know if this is the stock cable or not, so I'm actually not going to mention it, because I believe that they come with a 2.5 millimeter balanced cable with an adapter. This is the cable that's included is not a 2.5 millimeter balanced. So anyways, so the IEMs, they have this interesting little design. If you used to use cassette tapes back in the day in your youth, kind of reminiscent of that look. So they have a unique design. Build quality is metal. They're fairly small in size. Decent comfort. They do have a few minor quibbles. One, the nozzle is a little short and it isn't quite angled as far as I would like. And the problem with it is if you have a single tip and you put it on, you can see that lip is a little small, and tips tend to slide off of that. Also, if you have a single tip on, they kind of just rest on your ear, and the tips will get lost inside your ear hole, or you just don't get a good seal. There were many a time that the tips came off and got stuck inside my ear hole. I will admit, if that happens on an IEM, that is a major no-go for me. The other issue, other headphone IEM, I'll spit it out. The other IEM that had problems with that on were the KB Ear F1s. So fit is a problem, can be a problem. Comfort's not bad. Didn't have really any problems there. It was just that weird fit in the ear. So the Shuoer tapes. Love, hate, or meh? Well, if you put love here, meh here, and hate here, I would take meh with a step towards hate. I really don't enjoy these. They're okay. They don't really impress me. They're just all right, but I would choose something else. Yeah. Shuoer Tape. Thank you, Farsil, for sending these in. I do greatly appreciate it. It's been an interesting journey getting to listen to them and play around with them. I just wish that I didn't have such a difficult time getting the, yeah. Oh, one thing, Shuoer is releasing the Singer, which is a $75 version, basically, of these. It's kind of like a revise, from what I understand. Now, I haven't heard them, but initial impressions have said that they basically are fixing the problems of the tape. So, it might be interesting to look into and see if there's if those would interest you instead. So, again, Shuoer Tape. Yeah, they're kind of a meh hate for me. Don't really get a go for me. This has been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen is going to be a subscription link and a notification bell. If you haven't already, please check those off. Also, down below is going to be a bunch of links to the product that was reviewed, gear that was used, and also a bunch of links for Discord and playlists and all kinds of other things. Check it out. Thanks.